Exactly, almost a reverse sweep needed over here as we get into game number 5. Wham and Kasva will represent 3 Beavers and Turkey, whereas on the other side, Fat Penguin is going to have Neptune and Louis. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Louis didn't play a lot so far today, so they definitely look at him as someone that could possibly change things up, kind of become the difference maker, because so far the lineups that they operated with didn't always work.
I'm just trying to think, we haven't seen Magic today, right?
Yep. Magic was completely away, it apparently seems like.
That's interesting, because I was wondering if that's like, because that's a weird thing about the sub rule, is like, I thought that you'd have to play through your subs. It's a sub, right? If they're not available, they can't. So, you know, I wonder if it's one of those things where if they check in at the beginning of the day, we were going to enforce them to have to rotate or not. But either way, I mean, it looks like Magic not available for this series, at least from what we're seeing so far. Maybe if we go deeper, he'll make an appearance, but for the time being, it's going to be Kasva on those Frenchies we know him all too well for, and Wham, well, he feels so comfortable on the Mongols, and I'm just looking at the generation to open this up, and what I'm looking for is if you can shut down the French player, and one thing I've got to say, this generation, I actually think it's very difficult for you to block out his gold. Like, if you check Kasva's base, he starts off with a forward gold spawn, but then he has a retracted one behind tree lines. It's very difficult for you to wiggle back and forth and block out both.
Yeah, that one gold mine to the left, this is a dream. So much so that I'm actually surprised that he's using the one on the front. Might easily be just the bait type of an approach for him, but worst case scenario, if he loses the gold mine on the front, he can still go for the one at the back and just make a tiny wall to the edge of the map to completely prevent Spearmen pushing it or just the tower being dropped on it.
Yeah, I think it's more beneficial to play this way because you might give over some resources, but an interesting detail is that even if you lose this and you have to build another one, it's 25 wood, right? Your opponent will get paid 50 resources for burning this, but they would have to commit 100 resource outposts and idle time to build it up. A lot more idle time to rebuild a mining camp on the other side of your base. So it seems suboptimal, but if it forces the first outpost, it's actually more beneficial for Kasva this way. Oh, interesting. So I was just getting confirmation on this. So apparently the way it works is that you do not have to use the fourth player at all. They just there is kind of like a backup. Damn, I wish we kind of forced them to. It's clearly I just want to see Magic and Cero play. That's what it is. Maybe if the series goes on long enough, folks, Magic will make an appearance. Maybe Cero will make an appearance later today. PogChamp, so we'll in the chat. We'll have to see. I don't believe he's played a single game so far, so we can always hope and keep the dream alive. But there's that first outpost we were talking about. So Neptune is going to make the investment. No cancel on the mining camp from Kasva. I believe it was hit by a Khan a little bit earlier, so he didn't have an option. But now he'll go for the safe gold vein behind his base. And should that one get outposted as well, should point out there's a gold vein to the east of his base, which you can't easily reach unless you wrap north and then east again. It is such an annoying spawn to punish French players on.
This is going to be so tough for them to accomplish anything, and that kind of cripples your initial game plan overall, because at the end of the day, sure thing you burn down this mining camp, but you were hoping for more. And the worrisome detail is that, as I said, you leave the opponent's Mongol player completely unaddressed, so he's gonna reach Feudal Age, no problem. He's going to have a couple of archers pop out to deal with those spearmen, and if you look at what Wham is thinking about, it's gonna be trade.
Yeah, because he's completely untouched, right? He's like, well, this is the freest game of my life. No one wants to come to my base. It's gonna be the Magadai as well. Great choice here, because what's the common strategy when we see Mongol Ottomans? Probably up to 20 spearmen in a lot of cases. Obviously, they've stopped short of that because they're seeing no counter-aggression, but there's still decent value out of initial Magadai, or, of course, even the archers, just to counter out these spears.
Yeah, Magadai is actually a good one that you bring up. Could also support the knights really effectively initially, because you're going to have two players with high mobility. You can pick off the spearman, and then it could also help you escort your initial traders if you want to go for early trade. Now, looks like Wham is just going to go standard archers over here. No need to rush things. Okay. Probably the same approach is going to be taken with the trade as well. He's not going to rush it. He's going to wait for a window to open up before he commits to it. Now, Kasva looks like he got distracted for a brief moment. That's ugly.
And Kasva, well, he's wearing that suit when he plays, so he probably had to shuffle the tie, as you do, when you're like, we outsmarted them. He's like, oh no, my knight. How'd that one go down? Bull's also going up to try and prevent these easy wraparounds, so just trying to push them towards the TC where they'll get peppered arrows. And Archers, of course, does make a lot of sense for Wham. I was wondering if we might see an initial Magadai, because sometimes it is a good play when you're up against just these spears. But mass Archers with disadvantage makes a lot of sense, remember, because he knows that Louis also going to be massing Archers, but has heavily delayed his timing with this investment of spears.
I love how he's just going straight to the base of Louis over here. Has no desire to help out Kasva. He's just gonna be like, yeah, you can deal with this, dude.
Yeah, Kasva, you're used to getting beaten up on this team, right? Like, we basically do this to you every game. You got this, bro. And wow, I didn't even notice this. It's even worse. The minimap made it look like you could go through on the left side. You couldn't. So accessing this gold vein was even more difficult than we originally envisioned.
Yeah, but look at the chop through coming up over here quickly. There's gonna be a tower being rushed up. Villager is gonna get through here, that's for sure. You might drop a bit of a wall though to prevent the flood through.
Oh man. I think they should have. They could have walled that. Like, so basically what happened there is Wham was coming the archers, so Neptune and Louis both had to react. So they weren't in position for the flood through. It was a great play by Wham with just 2 archers there to pull them away.
Such a good move. Villager is low HP, will get picked off by the cavalry, Spearman getting picked apart, and this Dark Age aggression simply did not work for Louis and MT. They barely got anything out of this.
Nah, and Wham is now very confident about the state of affairs, right? He's got a raiding group and he's got a group to defend Kasva. I love the patience between these two. Like, Wham's probably like, Kasva, you okay? You look a little bit battered. Kasva's like, I can do this all day. He's like, okay, bro, first archers are going to their base, second wave is coming to yours. Just love that identification that you don't need to panic in this moment.
And once again, take a look at what Wham is doing. The moment that they realize that there is some sort of window for them, that they don't have to defend, that they have the numbers advantage, they're going to capitalize on that. Wham is adding trade in this very moment. Such a good use of that window that Louis and Neptune have given them. As you said, their timings are going to be off because of that Dark Age aggression. Yep. And this can be punished with some very effective trading over here for Wham.
And you're not going to see that trading from Neptune. He seems to be playing Transformers instead of Age of Empires 4. The Silver Tree had made its way up into Louis' base and was just parked in it. I think it's now moving north side to try and get that trade line set up. But it's not a safe trade line, right? This might get sniffed out. In fact, look at Wham's troops just left of this. Small yellow troopers are making their way up to that neutral trade post, so you won't even be able to begin trading yet as Neptune.
Yeah, this is getting scary. It looks like Louis isn't even gonna go archers over here. No. We've been theory crafting about his unit composition going into Feudal Age, but seems like he's gonna pay Sipahi. It's scary though, especially when you get one of those units picked off like a freebie.
Yeah. Especially when one of your opponents has knights, right? And if they just join together, because this is a dangerous thing for them. It's like Wham, if he builds enough archers, will just build rams and commit into one of your bases. Instead though, because Wham's got trade online, finally we're seeing the Magadai. And although Sipahi can deal with Magadai, they still have to reach them first. And should we ever see Wham use this map control to set up 2 or 3 outposts, you're never reaching them. It's literally impossible.
Yeah, the distance to cover between the 2 players is not even massive. So even just 1 or 2 outposts in the middle of the playing field gives you enough aura to essentially cover all relevant ground between the 2 players.
That hurts though. Losing your Khan at the beginning of a Magadai transition is really bad because you're really vulnerable before you have at least 10. Even then, like, it's a heavy investment for a glass cannon. So you always want to have that Khan to get out. Like, I know we GG about Khans dying a lot, but that's, like, in my opinion, that's the #1 situation where it almost does feel like a GG in your brain. It's like, if there's any situation that it feels bad to lose a Khan in, it's when you're making Magadai.
Yeah, but you know what's worse than losing a Khan? Losing your food eco.
Oh, okay, that too. That hurts quite a lot. Oh man, he has to ship it up and run away. He got decent fishing value, but the problem is, look behind his base. There's no safe resources. I think he does have a port to the north side that Neptune has expanded onto. That's all he's got, though. Yeah, anything else feels difficult to try and grab.
Yeah, he's gonna have to take a fight over here because he needs that food. Don't forget, shorefish is just so much better than everything else available. And on the other side, Vam is on shorefish. So they need to find an access to those little ponds. And for that, they're gonna need the help from Louis, who is now up to a decent amount of archers, up to 15, actually.
Yeah, and by the way, the other cool thing about this Magadai spam is, like, the Sipahi, you can't just do it, right? You see what Louis is, like, adding in. He has to bring the archers as well. It feels like Louis is essentially playing a 1v1 Ottoman comp, whereas when you look on the other side, what are 3 Beavers and a Turkey doing really well? they're playing team comp, right?
Yeah.
Cavalry from one player and range from the other. They're just leaning into their advantages.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier as well because you can just focus on one or two specific upgrades that upgrades all the units that you have. And the same thing is done by your teammate. Whereas if you take a look at Louis, for example, he is using a variety of units. So he's gonna need more upgrades to be taken if he wants all his army to be upgraded to necessary levels. So yeah, that's also one of the added benefits of what Kasva and Wham are doing over here. Alongside the fact that looks like the extra fishing eco was used by Wham to get CsOH first. Once again, big power spike on the side of Wham and Kasva.
Yeah, and the Magadai, he stopped at this count. Like, there's no more being added. So now we see the transition towards Lancers, because, of course, the issue he has if he continues Magadai is Louis has now massed Archers. So good pivot coming out. In the meantime, though, with the remaining Feudal Force, they will intercept the trade. Because what do? They look up, they say, oh, Louis walled the north side of the map. Yeah, but Neptune's trading across the entire map, and Lamau, Mongols can't wall.
Such a good read. Once again, they're going to intercept the traders out there. Lumberjacks are also idle for Louis here. And you could even use the Stealth Forest as the staging ground to just constantly pick off those traders with the archers. Louis and Neptune have to chase, and that's possibly the worst thing that can happen to them, because Wham is going to be more than happy reaching CsOH while they're distracted.
Kasva is very content to just stay where he is for now, but not without an advantage on the way. Kasva is actually mining stones, so soon he'll be making his way to multi-TC, always playing the same composition as the French player, whether it's 2v2 or 3v3. Looks like the archer mass is going to be cleaned up, but now it's double heavy cavalry. If you look at the comp that's been coming out, Neptune's somewhat been prepping for it, but there's a lot of archers and not really that many spearmen between two players.
At least there is a consolation prize over here for Louis, getting a couple of picks on those traders. So Wham at least won't have untouched trade for the time being, although this will likely quickly change once he has his Lancers on the playing field.
Yeah, it's interesting really, because if you want as Wham, you can just go for the southern corner, right? Like, just go Kasva broke and you add like 2 gates in across your palisades and we'll just trade down there instead. Like, you don't even have to be coming north. It's almost just like it's an ego chow play, to put it in like CSGO terms. He didn't need to do this, but he wanted to flex.
Yeah, he's actually gonna get that northern corner for himself. Villager gets picked off. The Matter, he needs to be careful. Could easily be pinched from the other side.
One more time. Nah, you can't get it. So Mayor's gonna stay alive, but remember, that doesn't affect Neptune's army, and this is primarily Neptune's army. Of course, it is mainly spears, which is why they're still not willing to take a fight. And one of these days, Wham is going to realize there is a southern trade post that he could be going to. But that day is not today.
Yeah, speaking of south though, Kasva's gonna expand to the second town center. Same thing. They're realizing that they can't win this game in 5 minutes if they full commit to army. But they do have a lead, so might as well make an eco lead. And that's exactly what they are doing. Second town center expansion coming up. If they can address this horde of spearmen, they're gonna be in a great position, but...
Kasva.
Yeah. We need something against those spears, man.
Like, honestly, I wish we had listenings for those type of moments, because I'm sure, like, Wham was like... It's one of those things where if you don't play a lot of team games, you sometimes forget to tell your teammate about something. Like, Wham is actively clicking away from that engagement, but he probably didn't remember to go, Kasva, move your knights. Kasva's just like humming along to some funky vibes he's playing in the background, building his TCs in the bottom corner, doesn't realize he's losing valuable knights. Oh.
To credit Kasva, he's doing other things as well. So he has got some small raiding parties to the east as well. So he's controlling multiple small groups of knights, and he's probably finding good value. So some of the damage taken on those knights is being offset. Oh, the Matter...
Yeah, this is actually worse than you'd think. Like, there's not that many spearmen to defend the archers. I like that play by Wham around the pond to try and split the fight. Still enough spearmen to keep him at bay, but don't be deceived by this military count. Like, a vast quantity of this is in archers. So, decent unit with the meta, even against heavily armored units, but if these spears ever get cleaned up, well, the archers won't be far behind them to an early grave.
Yeah, for sure. And the Matter is gone. The second Matter got picked off underneath the tower, so no more Matter support to that Ottoman army. And as you said, most of this army is just archers. When you look at the raw numbers, it is massively in the favor of Louis and Neptune, but quality is on the side of Kasva and Wham. So is mobility, and this is being exploited to perfection here by Kasva.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's everywhere at once. It's like, okay, the main army isn't here. You don't have anything to defend. He's going to take out more traders, which is good because Wham has plenty of trade going on despite all the deaths. And this time, they are heading to a safe place. Off to the haven that is the southern corner. So plenty of gold, soon to be in the pocket of Wham. That's going to escalate this line of knights that's coming out. In fact, between the two of them, like that's the other thing. It's not just the fact that half the army count for Penguin is archers. It's the fact that the entire army count for Beavers is in heavy knights.
Yeah, they still need to respect the spearmen because you do have 27 spearmen overall on the other side. But as you said, mobility advantage on their side, and it's all premium units. Very tanky, very powerful battlefield units, and looks like they're committing now even against the spearmen.
Yeah. Where are the spearmen? Like, there's not actually that many here. They need to get more out. Finally, they're reconvening the area, but it felt like that beginning clash. Like, they did not get punished anywhere near as much as they should. And keep in mind, because they went for that second TC, because trade is rebooming, they're ticking the box of what they need to do. They don't want to win a fight right now. They just want to force you to keep dancing around the central area while a few knights sneak in like wolves into the hen house and get rid of your trade.
For sure. The first trip of Wham's traders is just not being made, so he's yet to see major value for those traders. And as you said, for them, it's more than satisfying to just take the fights in the middle and let a completely untouched trade work on the southern part, while also chipping away on the eco of the opponent every once in a while with those knight swoop-ins.
And you see the other element that you get from this map control, right? Just spreading out really far away from the base to keep that fishing going. Something that I imagine Louis and Neptune are both equally paranoid to do as much. Like, sure, if your army's nearby, great. But if you think about where the bases are and where the ponds are, your army's never going to be there. Even more so when it's such a slow-moving one.
Yeah, CsOH has been hit by Neptune, so he might be transitioning to Lancers, but it feels like a terrible idea. You're going to be heavily outnumbered. You're trying to mirror the opponent's moves, but you are 5 steps behind. Feels like a bad recipe for success.
Yeah, if that's the recipe you're cooking, I'm just not eating it, quite frankly. Maybe if meta's attack speed or effect, no, let's not do that, that'd be broken. But like, that's the only world in which you're going to win a fight here. Like, not only are you up against a mirrored Mongol player with a big lead on you, you're up against French Knights. French Knights that are about to be bolstered further. Raw Institute is being built up, so Kasva will get access to canted saddles, plus the veterancy, and possibly raw bloodlines. There's no way you can win this with cavalry. But the issue that they see is if they don't start raiding, they're just dancing to the tune of the Canadians and the Turk. They're not doing anything active.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, they're going to dive the trade now, getting some good value, but behind this, they're also losing their own economy, and as you said, the big thing now is that Kasva's reaching CsOH, so we're reaching that threshold where once he gets royal bloodlines, spearmen by themselves will be insufficient to hold off those lancers. It looks like most of the traders might actually get away here. Or can they? Matter being the difference maker.
In a way, they're getting away. They're getting away from the brutal battlefield. They're going to Valhalla, or whatever trading heaven is in equivalence. So a heavy hit there at least, but at the same time, let's keep in mind that I don't think I've seen Neptune once have 10 plus traders in this game, and that continues to be the case.
For sure. And while you technically have over 40 spearmen on the battlefield for Louis' team, not all of them are in this group. So if Kasva charges in with those veteran knights, having canceled saddles and royal bloodlines, he can wipe this army out, and then Louis has just no standing army left. In fact, this is going to be the game plan here.
Exactly, that's what they're prepping for. They're adding crossbows as well. Now, I'd love to see Blacksmith Siege Engineering improved in one Mango, because this is a lot of archers. And you know you're going to be playing against Mangos yourself, so just massing crossbows alone isn't the most solid game plan now that Louis does have Castle Age, and thus will have free siege being built for him.
Oh, the pinch.
Flash coming out. I mean, this is just awkward right now. Like, you're in a choke point, but it doesn't feel beneficial. They're trying to poke in the backside here, but Crossbow's going to keep him at bay and bait him off to the side. There's just not enough spears here to defend. It's going to be a surge in and a wraparound that's going to cut them down. No doubt about it. This is going to be a wipe of Louis' army. Maybe you can micro out to optimize, get some extra picks on the way, but all spearmen more or less gone. You need to get out.
Yeah, and this was before Royal Bloodlines kicked in. The upgrade is just now finishing, so this is the moment that Kasva's been waiting for. You see, he's turning towards the archers. He's going to have a group to pinch them with from the north. This is a cleanup for Kasva's team. And this fight is easily one of those where we could say, if they win this, could easily be their ticket into the grand finals.
And this is the thing, right? Like, if they manage to bring those spears in from Neptune as well, great. Like, you can actually backstab. I think they kill the Knights. Like you mentioned, Blood Eyes is not there. But Wham just parked his crossbows in the way, and they auto-aggroed onto him. So they never actually shoot up to the main engagement. And then you saw the second pill by Kasva just pulling more spearmen away. Like, this is the problem. Like, you look at the raw count, you go, yeah, this feels like this should be enough spears. But then you have to add in the kiting factor. Like, how can I attack my targets? How can I even reach them? You can't in this situation. And now, Neptune and Louis, look at the military count difference. They're behind in compositions where they built cheaper units. And I don't see that easily changing anytime soon. Like, we're seeing a few Janissaries now coming out, but you need enough of them to hold. Small quantities will not match up well against this many Knights.
It gets worse than that. Right now, Neptune has no standing army. If they shift away from Louis' base, they can just march into Neptune's base and there's nothing there to defend it. But it looks like they're actually committing against the Janissaries. Kasva's also coming into raid, stonewalling off the corner.
The raid! The wall raid! The anti-raid tool is like, whoa, 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 I don't want you... You can build traders in here, I don't want them to be vulnerable to death, though. This is for their own protection. Mongols can't wall, after all. Oh, good luck keeping those Knights coming. I mean, luckily for Neptune, he does at least have a step readout, right? So he can keep pushing, but he's not going to get inflated income. Meanwhile, Wham is now up to 17 traders and escalating. Not only that, Kasva has decided that this map is way too open. He's walling the entire bloody thing.
I love it. They have a massive lead already, but they want to make sure they don't throw this away. Just playing as safe as possible, get the stone walls going, shut down the opponent's trade with a couple of pieces of stone walls, and we talked about this at the beginning of the series. The one thing that Kasva brings to this team is chaos. He loves to play chaotic games, and it is just something that contributes so heavily to this game as well.
Yeah, walls are usually something that bring order, but not in the hands of Special K. No, that's chaos spelt with a K in that situation. I mean, he's blocking the corner. He's going to prevent any anti-raids. Wouldn't be surprised if he thinks about joining in on the trade. I mean, it's basically going to be completely protected. It looks like there is going to be an intercept to prevent the third wall from going up. In the meantime, though, plenty of villagers being butchered. And can't help but feel that they're going to be dancing in circles at their own base at this stage without any opportunities to raid on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. Now Kasva is fully boomed with the French, and he's got 22 Royal Knights out there with 4 Castle Age upgrades. They managed to isolate the 2 players from each other, turning this essentially into 2 separate 1v1s. And in one of those, there is just no standing army for the Fat Penguins. Louis just 8 Lancers as opposed to the 23 of Kasva.
Yeah. Fat Penguin's not fat enough to brunt the blows here. It looks like the raids are going to continue to keep Neptune oppressed. And keep in mind that, wow, we saw he went for a Mangonel, which means this mass Janissary strategy out from Louis is going to be heavily crippled. And considering your teammate doesn't have any cavalry to snipe those Mangos, your game just got 10 times more difficult.
Yeah, I feel like 10 is an understatement over here. Maybe 100 times more difficult, because right now you really have to wonder what Louis and Neptune can do to come back into this one. Their story was so cool coming into this event. Qualified for this one, even got through the group stage. One of the biggest surprises of the entire tournament. But looks like their journey is about to end over here at the hands of Wham and Kasva, because there seems to be no way back into this one. Army numbers still look good on paper, but if you look at the overall population, the position on the map, and just how desperate this defense is from Louis and Neptune, you see the big picture. You see that Wham and Kasva, they want to be in the grand finals, and they likely will.
It's so promising. I had high hopes of Fat Penguin. They had some good performances coming through this tournament, but we mentioned at the start of this series, playstyle-wise, the way that Free Beavers and Turkey have been executing in 2v2s and 3v3s does match up incredibly well against Fat Penguin. And surprise, surprise, someone else who mentioned the X factor that is the way that Kasva plays the game really could be the deviation that catches these team format games off, right? Makes them have to play a different style that they're not comfortable with, and that has definitely been the case from early on. At least there's going to be a hold in the meantime in the base of Louis. But no doubt Neptune is still out of this game and done with it. Louis says this is not enough damage. He just checked his teammate's base. He screamed as loud as he could, and he waved the white flag. They've done it. 3 Beavers and a Turkey will be the first team into the grand finals of the Winter Team Championship.
What a showcase of power from them. We knew right from the get-go of this tournament that this team is gonna be a force to be reckoned with, but their chemistry is just so beautiful to watch. And really, Neptune, Louis, CsOH, and Yui, they put up a really good fight against them. Ultimately, if you would have to look at what really swung this in the favor of Kasva, Wham, and Puppy, it's probably the 3v3s. We talked about this before this set. Fat Penguin really needed at least one of those to be won. In the end, the only game that they were able to take away from 3 Beavers and a Turkey was a 2v2. The rest of the games, Wham, Kasva, and Puppy Paw were much more dominant. Well-deserved win over here, and they are going to be the first participants of the Grand Finals.
A little bit of help from Wetland's mucky spawns as well. I think the fact that Kasva had that protected gold vein in reserve helped them a lot here. That's not to discredit them, though, because I think what this came down to was the way that they actively raided in the mid game. Like, I'm a very big believer that it's much easier to be the offensive type player than the defender, right? We say this a lot in 1v1s. This type of philosophy is amplified more than just like by 2 in a 2v2 and so on and